Hi Virgo, welcome to Mama Star X channel. Welcome to this oracle reading where I will be talking about the frequencies of the month of February. I want to begin by thanking all of you who are listening to my videos and are supporting my channel. Thank you for doing that. And if this is your first time, welcome. I want to remind you also that this is an overall reading. My style is based on spiritual inspiration, where I've been guided to combine the oracle of tarot, numerology, and astrology to determine the frequencies of the month. Okay, so this is just another point of view. I am not an astrologer and nor a numerologist. So if you want something that is more precise, I recommend you that you go to somebody who does this for a living. In the meantime here, I'm just making this information available to those that by affinity feel a connection with the messages. My purpose is to help you and to prepare you a little bit better about what is going on in the world of energy. Because we have a machine, our body is an antenna that is constantly receiving information, is constantly translating that information. So, a lot of times we're not aware, we're so distracted and so focused in the physical world that we forget that we're all energy. And in that energy reality, there's all kinds of energy and frequencies that sometimes our mind is not aware or cannot handle, while our body is working with them. So imagine, your mind is focused on a particular situation while your body is aware of everything that is going on around you. So if we're not cautious or have a desire to understand the non-physical reality, we are struggling. And we're going to struggle even more because more frequencies are accessible to us that we're not used to using. And although you may not be using that information, your body is feeling them. And it's going to get more intense as we move on, especially in this year 2022. I did a video where I spoke about this frequency. So I recommend that you go and listen to, because I have my own point of views when I use astrology. So it's good that you are aware of what those are, because I'm not always going to repeat the same information. And it's important that we're on the same page as far as, when you're listening to this information and how you're going to process it and integrate it. Alright, so as you can see, I have in the table all the frequencies of the month. And it's quite a lot. And that's not incorporating the frequencies of the actual astrology, because I always like to check that out to see what are the houses that are most active. I didn't add them here. But there are celestial bodies that are going to come out here that are coinciding with whatever is going on with astrology. So this is what is great about this method, that a lot of times what I realized is that some of the frequencies that come up have a lot to do with some of the celestial bodies that are affecting astrology in the moment. Of course, I'm only here reading for Virgo, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so there are certain things that I need to address, or Spirit wants me to address, before I get into these frequencies. And one of them is retrogrades. Because in the month of January, we had two retrogrades, two planets that were retrograding. One was Mercury, which is your planet, and the other one is Venus. Here's where Spirit is asking you to please open your mind a little bit more and open your definitions, because we have a tendency sometimes to create certain definitions where we are looking at some of these forces that tend to limit our perception of our perception. I can't even talk. But I just did a video in Spanish, so when I switch language, it's always a struggle. All right. So Spirit says, look, a lot of times when you start creating categories about an energy or a frequency, you limit the nature of that energy. And when you start giving it a lot of focus and a lot of your own energy, the only aspect that you're going to experience from that energy is the one that you gave power to. So this is one of those moments that we need to start opening our mind and consider that a lot of these frequencies can be expressed in many different ways. And if you only want to get to experience other perspectives, you're going to have to start eliminating some of these identities that you create through your ideas. And an example of this is Mercury and Venus. Okay, Mercury representing communication and Venus representing love. Sometimes people say that it's to do with aesthetics, beauty, money, whatever. So yes, at some level, that information is true, but it's also a very limited perspective, especially when we think of the frequency of love. You know, love is the structure of everything exists. The information that you receive has love, and yet you get to manipulate it in the way you want to diminish that energy so that you can create the experiences that you're having. So when we look at the frequency of Venus and, you know, we only see it as this, well, you're defining that energy as such and you're limiting the nature of that energy. So Spirit says it's time for you to change that. It's time to open your mind. Also with Mercury, there are means of communication where we get to express and share what we know from within, but there are other ones that we are not aware of that do exist and are also affecting the nature of our reality. So consider that there are many things that you don't know or you haven't explored that exist even though you may not know them. But just because you don't know them, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So let's talk about retrogrades, because retrogrades are famous for creating challenges with technology. Don't sign paper, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. But you know, what is it that we can do during retrograde? Because to me, it's a really beneficial energy if we know how to work with that energy. And you know, you don't have to stop making decisions because you're retrograding. So when we think of retrogrades, it's basically the break that the universe gives us to reflect a little bit deeper about the things that we're doing. So this is a time where the universe says, hey, slow down. It's time to take a break. You know, you live in a reality that is not just about planting seeds and having desires. You also have to know when it's important to take a break, but because it's an aspect of how you are able to sustain certain frequencies, especially if you want to nurture those frequencies. Taking a break, just like when you're planting a seed, there's time. There's a perfect time to do that, and there's a perfect time for you to sit back and let the universe do the rest. We have not been taught to behave that way. As a matter of fact, we have created a lot of habits to force change, and ultimately that create imbalances. Okay, so karma is not just about doing the wrong thing. It's just about not understanding what you're doing and when you need to do it. Because you live in a reality where you're not the only one who is changing the nature of energy. You are collaborating with forces that are infinite in nature. And those forces are the ones that are helping you out to succeed in your purpose. So when we look at retrogrades, this is a time to slow down, to spend more time reflecting about the things that you've been doing. What are you getting? What are your intentions? Who are the people that have come to help you out? How has that worked out? Do you want to continue to put time and energy with those connections? Because a lot of times, just because you moved away from somebody, it doesn't mean that you still don't have an active cord or active connection with that person. So you want to liberate that energy so that you can use it in your new projects. And retrograde is perfect for that. It's like cleaning house. Removing the weed out of your garden. So perfect time to end confusions, to have a better understanding of what you're doing, how you're doing it, who are the people that, have come to help you out, in what way they did it, what was their purpose in the connection. When it's time to release them, let it go, because you need to go on your path. And here comes the next point. Your evolution, your spiritual evolution. And here's where Spirit asked me to learn a little bit more about nodes. I had heard this term in astrology, but as I said, I'm not an astrologer. But Spirit has an incredible way to guide you once you learn to observe and pay attention and trust that process. So I was guided to look deeper into nodes, and the one thing I found out is that this is the way that astrologers, and please, I may be wrong, but this is the way I understood it. This is the way that astrologers can determine your evolution in relationship with your imbalances. And is done by the combination of signs that are within a moment representing the North Node versus the South Node. And normally the symbol is like this. And these are for the people that really don't know. I know there may be some of you that already know this, but there are some that may not, so keep that in mind. So North Node, South Node. When somebody's going to do your natal house or your astrological map, they can determine by the dance between the moon and Earth moving around the sun, the numerical codes that will let you know the times where you're going to have opportunities to grow up and evolve spiritually in this physical reality. So North represents your expansions and your evolution, while the South represents your imbalances. Some people call it karma. So these are two things that go hand in hand. In the present moment, we have Taurus and a Scorpio. For me, Taurus represents your abilities, your capabilities, developing your spirituality, your skills, because we're going through a major shift in which we need to start activating the codes that are representing our capabilities as a light being. Scorpio represents transformations. And the one thing that we can agree, Virgo, is that you've been going through major transformations in the last few years. It didn't start this year, or it didn't begin last year. It started a few years ago. Some of you have gone through many difficult experiences where you've been forced to step up and take charge and make changes that are going to make you feel either more worthy or more capable or more independent or an example to others. So right now, this combination is very beneficial. I think it's going to last about a couple of years, but it's there to help you assess the greatest potential in your evolution if you desire to do that, if you're aware of that. So that's why, some of you may feel like, what, I'm trying to manifest this situation, and as much as I'm trying, there's always something. Something seems either to fall apart, or break away? Well, it's because your physical mind is not the one that is making those decisions. It's your spirit. And for the Virgo collective, there is a huge emphasis in this opportunity of expansion. And the reason being, and this is where it comes the good one, and this is especially for those of you who love to hear in tarot readings in YouTube, the signs that are coming up in those readings. I don't do that because I don't necessarily think that's helpful, but here's another way that you can have a better awareness of the people that you bring into your life according to their sign and their modality, how it is that they're helping you in your own personal evolution. So it's funny because I was guided to get involved into this. And from this, I was able to understand this information that I'm going to share with you, and it has to do with the number 3. Okay? So this is the symbol, numerical symbol of harmony and creativity. In different religious practice, the 3 has been given many different names, but those names I'm only referring to the forces of the universe, how they express themselves, so that we're able to change an idea into matter, so that we can manipulate source energy's ideas into another form. And the names are creative, preserving, and transforming. Okay? So these are also the meaning of the number 3. Two of the symbols that represents the 3, and I think I've talked about this before, is the triangle and the yin and yang. So basically, what this triangle is saying, look, every idea that you have, or every energy that exists, it has 2 aspects. Okay? We, as manipulators of that energy, get to identify ourselves with one side or the other. But it is not until we transcend either side that we're not able to create the perfect harmony or find the perfect middle ground between those 2 sides. Example, love, lack of love. Okay? So let's say that these are the 2 polarities. You have love on one side and you have lack of love on the other side. We can call lack of love a lot of things. And we can name love many things, which we do. But from the moment that you identify with this concept of love, you start creating definitions based on what you've learned. And at the same time, you create expectations. The expectations, when you measure them against this concept of love, creates a polarity. And when you start a relationship and everything is great and everything is good, you're experiencing love. But when one of the persons stops giving in the same manner, now we start experiencing an absence of love. And now we move from one extreme to the next extreme. Spirit says as long as you're dancing from one side to the next, and you're not really transcending either energy through wisdom, through a higher wisdom, you will not be able to regain or to create the level of harmony between these 2 forces. So everything that we do here to be able to have the experiences that we have, it's about this dance where we identified ourselves with one aspect of the energy, and then we created a polarity, and then eventually through experiences we unite right? And we get the understanding that it's not either one or the other, that the best option is to be as neutral as possible. That is what this symbol represents. That is what this symbol represents. Because if you notice here, we have the aspects of the two archetypes, positive and negative, feminine, masculine, but there is a middle ground. In the triangle, you have to transcend the duality, and in the yin yang is a perfect line in the center of these two energies, which happens to be universal truth, because there's only one energy in everything. One energy is expressing in many different ways. So when we look at this symbology in astrology, we have a series of planets, of zodiac signs that represents each element under each expression, universal expression. And Virgo, you're going to know this. Which one is yours? Transforming, preserving, or creative? Well, if you said transforming, you said it right, because the modality of these signs are known as transmutable, right? The preserving signs are known as fixed signs, and creatives are cardinal. Okay, so we know that transmutable signs is Virgo, representing Earth, and we know that Virgos were famous for being of service, because we have the ability to represent this transforming energy in a way that we can use it and then change it, and we're very adaptable within those changes. So we have a great capability to adapt to the changes, and this is the reason why we're of service in the 3D reality, because we have that quality naturally. It's not that other people don't have it, it's just that we are naturally born to be able to adapt, be it difficult situations to more, to better situations. Gemini is air, and I'll tell you, these people have an incredible ability to jump from one extreme to the next and find it okay and be okay. We can struggle in darkness, and then trying to get out of darkness is difficult. A Gemini, they can walk through the underworld and get out, and not a problem. You can hear a Gemini in one moment falling apart, and then the next moment it's like, oh, I'm fine, nothing happened. Their level of adaptability is incredible. Pisces, they're water. They can do it with their emotions. And Sag, they're fire. These people, they love to explore all the possibilities, always looking for new adventures. So now for a moment, let's bring it into our reality. When you are in your path of evolution, and you've been doing a lot of changes where you have had to purge a lot of negativity, you've had to integrate and do all this process that we are going through right now, and you're up to date. But right now you're in one of those moments where you want to be more independent, you want to get your own job or company going, and although you're very adaptable and very open to change, you don't have that capability that other signs may have when it comes to start a new business. Well, depending on your frequencies, because here's what we have to keep in mind, that our emotions is the language of the body, but is the fuel that magnetizes our opportunities, while your mind is the fuel that directs that magnetism, right? Your ideas. So not until we're able to unite our ideas with our feelings, that we're not more I don't know, I'm trying to say a word that I cannot say. We're not more direct and more efficient about the opportunities that we're trying to create. If our mind is going one way and our feelings are going in a separate way, and you're trying to make choices and you're trying to manifest something in your life, the opportunities that are going to come to you are going to show you the level of confusion and division you got going on internally. Now, these are things that we already know. I think there's plenty of us that already know this. But our challenge sometimes is to be able to remain consistent in applying this knowledge. A lot of times we get very distracted with the drama in 3D. We don't trust. We hear other people and get confused by what other people say. And it's difficult times because there's a lot going on. And thanks to the advances of technology, my God, we have access to so much information that is ridiculous. But here's where you have to make an effort to come back to your own center and work from within. If you're not working from within, you're going to lose the balance. And the best advice that I can give you is, if you fell off the horse, remove the dust out of your clothes and get on the horse again. Don't spend too much time dwelling in the misery and in the guilt. Just let it go. Because these are moments that require our attention. It's very important that we're paying attention. It's very important that we remain focused with our priorities and with our purpose. And it's not that you should not be having fun. As a matter of fact, Spirit says, hey, follow your creativity. Follow your creativity. Because 3 is not only talking about harmony, it's following about creativity. And that's the mechanism that allow you to follow your highest excitement, and everything you're going to get from that is going to be fun. It's going to be easy. But you also have to have clarity in your purpose, clarity in your determinations, and retrogrades are great for that. If you lose your aim, if you lose, the desire for what you want, you have time to catch up in a retrograde. So, when you look at cardinal signs, so let's say that you need somebody who wants to help you, right? It's start a new business. Well, if you attract, let's say, an Aries, which is a cardinal sign, you will have a pretty good idea in the way that person is going to help you. Because right now, the one thing I notice is that normally for Virgo, and I just noticed this for Virgo because I don't read for other signs. I don't do these videos for other signs. But I would imagine that it's happening to you, Virgo, is happening to other signs too. One of the things I noticed that normally the signs that are most compatible for Virgo, right now, Virgo is not interested so much in attracting those people. And once I became aware of that observation, Spirit says, well, that's because you're evolving. And in this point in your evolution, when you look at your nodes, you're having a major expansion. Virgo, you're having a major expansion. And you're being pushed to do better and better and better. So this is not a time where you should get really comfortable when you meet somebody just because you feel an incredible attraction. It's going to happen to you time after time after time. But of course, that depends on the choices that your soul made about your expansion and your evolution. So if you're not aligning yourself to your soul purpose, you're in trouble because you're doing things blindly, aimlessly. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it wastes a lot of energy. And part of this expression of source energy within us is to also be able to preserve it. But you got to ask yourself, well, what am I going to preserve? Because when you're forcing the issue with somebody else that is not meant to stay in your life, it's only meant to give you a push, you waste a lot of energy. And that energy is being occupied in things that are no longer serving you and will no longer bear fruit. So this is one of those times, Virgo, where there's a lot of scorpionic energy, which talks about major transformations happening again and again and again, that is creating epiphanies, spiritual epiphanies, illuminations. This is going to end. Eventually it's going to end. It's going to get better. Let's say that it's going to get better. Not necessarily end. You're just not going to feel the same amount of intensity that you may feel now, or you may be feeling in recent times. But the more you get comfortable with that, the easier it's going to get. The question is, are you aware of this? Are you aware of it? Are you interested in continuing to become aware of what is happening in the world of frequencies? So now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the codes. And let's get into the portals. Okay, so in the last video, I said that in January, the last portal ended on the 28th. Let me get a better marker. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I said it was on the 28th. Okay. The next portal is going to be on February 2nd. So we're going to have a period of 5 days where we're going to transition from month 1, which was the Magician in Tarot, to month 2, which is the High Priestess. So in month 1, the purpose was for the aspect of the Magician in each one of us to go through this series of transformation depending on the codes that I gave you for that month. Now we are in month 2, and it's all about the High Priestess. And the High Priestess represents our spiritual food, how we're nurturing ourselves, what are the concepts that we have about our capabilities, our spiritual capabilities, because we know that the High Priestess, it's all about working within. So now we have, so let's talk first about this transition before we get into the first portal of the month. So we have here energies such as, give me a minute. So we have 1, the Magician, working with 10, 11, 2, 4, and then it ends in 6. So basically the Magician has to work through all of this and land in the 6, which in Tarot is the Lovers, and in numerology is love, and in astrology is the House of Virgo. To me, the House of Virgo represents fertility. And you will understand that more and more as you continue to listen to my videos and hear my points of views. Why it's not just health and work. It's about fertility. It's the nature of our energy, our soil, when we deal with all of the areas of our lives. All right. So 10. And here, so that you have a better picture, right? So we have the frequency of the 1, which is the Magician right here. Okay. And it needs to work with 10. And 10 right here. In Tarot is the Wheel of Fortune. And when you look at this photo or this image, Virgo, we see the wheel of astrology with all the different signs. In the bottom, we see a lotus flower. And a lot of us know what the lotus flower is about, right? So being able to transcend our limitations allow us to change the cosmic clock. We know this card as being a very fortunate time. So our tendency is to think, well, we got the blessings of the universe. This is a time where we're going to attract fortune, luck, and all of these things. And yeah, it's true. But it's also true that if you are not able to be aware of what you're doing inside yourself and the frequencies that you're nurturing, it doesn't matter how many times you get this card, that you're going to, take advantage of those energies. Because you have the capability to change and manipulate the cosmic clock. Means that you're the one who have a lot to do of how much fortune and blessings you're going to get. The universe is always capable and is always available to give you those blessings. The question is, are you willing to accept them? Do you think you're worthy of them? So, when we have an expansion about who we are as a creative force, we are also able to diminish our imbalances, our karmic debt. And that's what this 10 is about. Because here numerology says there are karmic completions that are taking place, that it changes the nature of the flow of our energy. And if it changes within ourselves, of course it's going to change it outside ourselves. So Capricorn represents that. The other frequency, 11, and here we have a master number, Justice. Look at the image of this card, because this is important, especially for those of you who love to hear tarot. Because a lot of times, I like to hear what other people do, because it's fun to see the perspective and the point of views of other people like me that are doing the same thing. But I noticed that the tendency when they read these cards is very superficial. And if you want to leave it in the surface, but it's always going to keep you coming back wanting more because it's not filling your cup, and it's because it's not bringing you what you desire, and then you need to go deeper. Dig a little deeper. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to damage you. This Justice card is just not talking about somebody coming and asking for forgiveness because they did you wrong. This card, you see an angel with a sword of truth in one hand and the balance on the other one. And it's asking you here, well, what is your truth? What is your truth right now? Because depending on what you consider true for you right now, not always, because you're always changing your truth, it's going to determine the experiences that you're going to have. It's going to determine the type of harmony that you're going to create. So it's a very elastic subject, because it requires you to acknowledge your power of manipulation, your abilities to manipulate. The magician. So what is your magic? What are the intentions of why you do what you do? When you want something, why do you want it? Do you want it because it's going to make you feel better? And for you to feel better, you have to have that? Or do you want it because it's fun and it's exciting? Because your intentions have a lot to do with the level of harmony that you create and the opportunities you attract. And that's why you see somebody here walking for the path of, with rocks. You determine your path. And your path is going to be easy depending on your truth. Because there is a difference between truth and your highest truth. And we're always changing our perspective. We're always exploring new possibilities, because when we look at source energy, we know that there are infinite possibilities about the way we can do things. But we cannot do them all at once. So just because you have learned to do something in a particular way, it doesn't mean that that's the only way, or those are the only options. There's many others available to you. The question is, are you open enough and receptive enough to receive that information? Because in order for you to receive that, you have to change your genetic codes. You have to become more neutral and let go of a lot of your definitions. It's like emptying your cup halfway. If you have a full cup, it's impossible for you to receive new information. So it's interesting how all of this is being said in these frequencies. And the reason why I'm saying all of that, because the astrological house that is representing justice is Aquarius. And we already know enough about Aquarius, right? Expansion, expansion, expansion. And then we get to the High Priestess. High Priestess, what a wonderful thing. Because this is the card that represents your inner reality, your divine feminine, your spiritual nature. So all of this work that you've been doing in January is going to lead you to change the nature of how you work with your spiritual side, which is, by the way, the frequency of the month of February. So you see, everything is preparing you to help you become more aware, because you're going to be working this year with this energy. And what you're being asked from Spirit is, hey, expand your awareness, your knowledge of who you are from within. And this, once you do that, is going to affect the nature of your initiatives. And here's another good one, because we see the Emperor here, right? And how many times have we heard that the Emperor is a person? And I'm not saying, again, that is wrong. But what I'm saying is, hey, take a closer look to this symbology, because there's more to that. This is talking about a status. The status quo. When we get to that place where we know when is the moment, the proper moment to take an initiative, because we're paying attention. It has a falcon or some eagle here. And it comes with a magic ball. Okay? So representing of that eagle or that falcon, whatever it is the one that it tells this person the future. And we all have this capability, but we have to learn how to develop it. So when we look at the Emperor, we're talking about an aspect of ourselves that allows us to know when is the proper moment to make a move or take an initiative. And my question is, Virgo, when you're in a relationship and you're getting to know somebody, have you already learned that point in the middle that determines how much you need to give and how much is okay for you to receive? Have you learned that already? Because that has to do with this card here, Justice, and the Emperor. Have you already learned to determine in any type of connection or any type of project how much you need to give and invest in that project, and when it's time for you to step back and relax and reflect? Because there is a magical moment in everything that we do that requires you to step back and take a break and let the universe do the rest. Have you learned that? So this all leads to your house, the house of Virgo. And now you're going to understand, out of all these frequencies, why the major arcana who's representing Virgo is the Lovers. Because the Lovers is representing what we do within ourselves once we start understanding everything that I've just spoke about. And that's how you create fertility, and that's how you align yourself to the concept of love. Love is in everything. How much of love you want, you determine. But you gotta start letting go of a lot of your identifications with this concept of love, because a lot of them have been based in what you've been taught to think that love is. And yes, it has worked for you to some degree, but right now in this major shift, those views are not necessarily going to be helpful because they're too limiting. All right, so now that we got that, there's a lot of frequencies that are going to be repeated, so I don't have to say the same thing. But here's where you get to decide, right? How you're going to approach all of this information. So the second cycle, or it's pretty much the first one for the month of February, this is just transition. It starts from 2-2 to 2-11. And the third one is 2-11 to 2-20. All right, so let's write the codes now. So on the first portal, we have the High Priestess working through the 4, the Emperor, the 11, Justice, and then we have a new frequency here, 13, and then it goes back into the Emperor, right? 2 energies repeat, and then it ends in the number 8. And this is why I said there's a lot of Scorpionic energy here, because it's talking about major transformations. So little ones that are taking place and they're happening suddenly, things that are changing out of the blue, new beginnings, quick endings, new beginnings, endings, right? So it's going to happen a lot, and it's going to feel very uncomfortable because it's going to require you to, instead of focusing on what you're leaving behind, to focus on the here now. What is your purpose? How will you continue your journey without getting distracted about what you left behind? It's difficult, but it's possible. So with 11, we know it's about Justice. The 13, we have here death. Okay? But as you can see, death, the sun is behind it. So you're going to have a lot of clarity. Basically, that's what the Spirit is saying. Look, you will know when it's time for you to let go of something. You will know it. You will see it because you have the sun next to it, to the death, to the transformation. You'll know. And these moments are going to be so eye-opening for you. So make an effort. Be patient. Persevere. Sometimes it's not going to be difficult. Especially when you're feeling, especially in the nature of your relationships, for those of you who are trying to attract the right person. You're going to attract people that you're going to feel strongly connected. But here's where Spirit says a lot of those people, they're coming to assist you and to deliver some sort of information that you were probably asking for. So if that's what they're doing, is filling in the gap, see it as such, be grateful and move on. Because this is all about initiatives, right? How can we make and take better initiatives coming from a place of knowing? Last year, 2021, it was all about the Hierophant. So it means that we needed to master it. We were being initiated at different levels of awareness about how to become aware that we are manipulating energy and we're masters at it. All we need to do is incorporate the other part that we were missing, that we were ignoring, our spirituality. For some of us right now, that's really difficult, especially for those who have always believed that the only thing that exists is physical. Nothing spiritual exists. But for those of you who are already a little bit ahead, well, you know, it can be a little bit better. Although there are moments that is hard because as much light you can bring in, you also have to harmonize the dark side. And there's a lot of darkness right now in our reality. We have created a lot of darkness. A lot of ugly things are hidden within the divine feminine. and we have to clear all that shit out. Not necessarily as a collective, but personally in our own reality. And when we're able to work that out and not freak out, and then we start being of service to others. So it ends on the 8th, which is Scorpio. Where are you? Where are you? Here you are. You see what I mean? Scorpio and the Strength card. So everything that you're doing is going to make you stronger, powerful. And this is not a power that you're going to use to manipulate other people in the way that has happened before. This is why in the old days, in order for you to have access to a particular wisdom, not everybody could do it. People would have to go through a process of purification, purifying the mind, purifying the heart to be able to access that wisdom, because we're talking about knowledge that can tampered into the nature of the fabric of our reality, manipulate spirit. And I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of high priestesses and hierophants right now that have gone dark, and they use their power to manipulate other people out of greed, out of, I don't know, cruelty, but they do it. So right now, we're trying to move away from that. All right, so we are going to have a new moon on the 1st of the month. That's going to be awesome for your creativity. We're going to have Venus moving forward on the 29th, and I think Mercury on the 3rd. And that new moon is going to be in the house of Virgo. I think I said that. Okay. So in the second portal, I feel this is where we're going to feel quite intense. It's going to get really intense. Because there is going to be a full moon in, let me see, a full moon on the 16th in Pisces. And there's supposedly going to be a little bit of intensity there that it's not going to feel really nice. So pay attention. You may not have to participate of those feelings, right? But just so you know, on the 15th we have Mercury going into the 6th house, which is our house and Virgo's house, and it's going to unite to the Sun and Saturn. This is going to be really positive for you to learn something new, something valuable, blah, blah, blah. On the 19th, we're going to have Sun in the house of our relationships, and it's going to join with Jupiter and Neptune. Perfect time to attract new people. But at the same time, it's going to happen around a time where Pluto is coming back from a journey of 200 and some years. So now astrologers are talking about this quite a bit. So look into it. But it's interesting that in the codes of the second portal, those energies come out. It's interesting, right? How my method is somehow aligned with astrology, even though this is not about astrology. So the codes that we're going to use, and I'm going to show you, on the second portal is going to be, give me a minute, the High Priestess has to integrate the 11th, the 13th, the 4th code, 20, 24 is going to end on a 4, and then the 8. So look at all the codes. And I feel like that's the time where we're going to have all of these other activities in astrology that is going to be quite intense. Now, does it mean that this is bad? No. It just means that there's going to be a lot of frequencies available to us. But if you're not aware of it, it could make you feel off. But if you are, you will be able to maneuver those frequencies like a master. like a master. So here we have 11, justice coming in. That's the 11th house, Capricorn. 13 is 13th is death, right? With the sun. 4, the Emperor, initiatives. So as you could see, right, we are dealing here with truth and the awareness of how our intentions are affecting our reality. We're taking into account changes and transformations that are needed in order for us to release the old and access the new. We'll be more clear about taking initiatives. And then here it comes, 20 and 24. 20, Uranus, judgment. Interesting. And 22, Pluto. And there's no major arcana. So it would be 4 when we add the number. And we already know what that 4 is about. So what this is telling me, Virgo, is that by the end of the month, it's going to get really intense because there's a lot of changes that are happening, as I said, again and again and again. And all of that is going to force you into a level of awareness that is going to be extremely either uncomfortable or it's going to make sense. Because you may have these incredible epiphanies about who you are, what you're about, but also about the reality that you live in. This is definitely a time where I feel like our collective is moving through a major portal because it's all of these twos that are related to the year, where it's all about our intuition, learning how to follow and trust our intuition even when we cannot see what is coming. And this is already happening with me. I know that many good things are going to happen. Is it going to be equal for everybody else? No, because it depends. It's up to you whether you participate in those frequencies of being optimistic and things are going to be okay, so that it can put you in those timelines where things are going to be okay, or if you decide to go the other way, the other route. We have gotten used to seeing before believing. And when you're working with your high priestess, you gotta trust and believe and have faith before you see it. And not everybody is there. Not everybody is riding that boat yet. And I feel like this is one of those times where our spiritual capabilities are going to go into a whole new different level of awareness. But it requires each one of us to be open, receptive, and prepared to do it. We have to be able to accept it. And, we have a lot of times difficulties accepting and allowing for things to come in. So this is why one of the most important messages in this reading is open your mind. Stop identifying yourself with all of these definitions that it has to be this way or that way. Just be open and present and feel your instincts. Let those instincts guide you even when you don't see it in a 3D. And you will see. And you will figure it out. And if you need to know whatever it is that you need to know, the universe and your guides will provide you with the information. If you don't, let it go. If somebody comes in and you had a great exchange and then they leave you, let it be. Because you're in a path that it doesn't end there. So don't make it more difficult for yourself. So Virgo, this is all I have for you. I hope this helps you out. Thank you so much for being here and the best of luck to you.